Well, greetings everybody, and welcome to yet another edition of the show we call the Inworld Review. This is a program where we look at arts, destinations, and moreover people across the hypergrid. Now, if you're wondering what the hypergrid is, it's the system that connects modern virtual worlds or virtual spaces together. At the moment, it's provisional on their running a software called Open Simulator, which is an open source equivalent of something, if you've heard of it, for example, Second Life. And well, we round up all the people, places, and things for your delectation or something or other like that. Yeah, we do. My name is Mal Burns, and I'm your host. And my regular co-host, Thursday Ember, is not actually here today. I'm sure she sends her apologies. But we are joined again by, she was here as a co-host last week, in fact, although she's changed seats today. I'm getting really confused. She's over there instead of cuddled up with me. It's Tosha Tyran here as our co-host this week. So welcome, Tosha. Welcome back.
Hi, thank you for the nice welcome.
Okay. And on my on my other side, but in fact, he's actually sitting next to me. He's the only person sitting next to me today, apart from Barkus, the dog. James Atlloud, who's our sort of tech guy, does the videography, loves sitting, but even better, he loves fiddling with knobs. Audio, visual, you name it, he's got a knob for it. So, welcome to James.
Yeah, thank you, Mal. It's always as fun. Happy to be here.
Right. And we have a very special guest with us today. If I can stop croaking or getting dizzy on and we've had her here before, of course. Her name is Forest Azure, and we've previously looked at some regions as well, and she's a performer around quite a whole load of stuff. In fact, we might touch on that a bit. But the real reason we got about this week is that she's the author of a rather interesting mega document, a bit like a thesis or something or other, which I can't find at the moment. Wait, come on. Let me find a way of bringing the screen forward. There we are. It's called The Differences Between Opensim and Second Life, a qualitative research project, sort of sociological kind of thing. And rather appropriately, Tosha is something of a sociologist too, so she's going to help the questions there. And I gather it's something
Bingo.
James is very keen on too. So I will just hold my head, which is all dizzy, and let you two get on with it. Anyway, a proper welcome. Welcome, Forest Azure.
Thank you.
Right. Now, before we haven't got the hypergrid happenings this week, obviously because Thursday's not here to do it, and I'm just going to click on our screens at the back here. One of the events that we featured last week was on the 21st, 3 days ago it happened. There was a big sort of party on Craft Grid with the Museum of the Metaverse and Carp and a whole load of things. Mega event, really. And I put up the poster for it on our middle screen at the moment. Tosha, in fact, was part of that, but a whole load of other people we all know anyway. Now, the reason I'm mentioning it again, I mean, the exhibition is still on anyway, but Craft Grid here have actually released, I think it's about 2.5 hours of film. What you're looking at on the screen is just the title frame. We wouldn't even be able to play that on this show anyway, but since we're going to be talking a lot about sociology and things like that, we thought it'd be nice to actually have a long piece of film running behind us silently, showing sort of social activity and arts and stuff like that, so that there's something for you to watch, as well as our talking heads where appropriate. So that's actually on the screen behind me. Before that, though, I'm going to quickly move to our normal. Come on, mouse, move where I want you. There we are. Right. Just hgsafari.blogspot.com. This, of course, is Thursday's blog. And oops, that's not the view we want. Probably no, it isn't, is it? We want, right? We want to. Sorry, I'm gonna have to reload that again. Not on form today. What we don't actually want that reading view on. We just want the photos. So basically the Littlefield grid, which has been around for a fair old time, well, 11 years to be precise, because they during the week, week just gone, they celebrated their um, 11th birthday. And there's more, you'll find more at hgsafari.blogspot.com from Tosha herself, written summary and everything. But these are just some of the pictures she put up with, well, featuring the anniversary bits, really. So I thought we'd show them here. Um, there we are. Pepperland 2, now the Beatles.
Yep.
And Doctor Who exhibits. A lot of familiar topics featured on this grid, of course. Master of Light song, or sing, or something like that. Little challenge, just world makers, and then the final one is actually the most appropriate one of all. Really, it's the
Oh,
birthday cake.
yep.
11th birthday grid too. They tend to be known as LF grid for short. I mean, they are called Littlefield grid, but you'll find the Earls and things like that, and people's tags will just say LF grid. So anyway, so on behalf of me, Thursa, and I guess all you guys here, we will wish Littlefield Grid a happy birthday, and long may you last. We'll see you next year.
Yeah, and I would like a piece of that cake, chocolate.
It
Mm.
does
Oh
look
yeah, yeah.
rather yummy, doesn't it? Actually, given this illustration, I bet you it's an AI cake.
And what?
Mm,
Oh,
Can you have an AI cake? I guess cakes have any intelligence in them anyway. I
you
don't know.
can have an AI image of a cake, certainly.
That's what I meant.
Yeah,
But I was
yeah.
just being stupid,
mm.
wasn't it? I was being stupid for the sake of it. I thought I'd get a laugh. Right. Okay. So moving back to there we are. Get that up on screen. Ready. And um, as we may need it. Right. Okay. So that's that out of the way and everything else. Okay. I think we can move into the nitty gritty of today's show. As I say, it's sort of a sociology is the kind of theme here. Now, Forrest, I'll start with you because you brought 8 slides with you, or screens, or whatever you call them. Um, they're fairly they're fairly simple in general, so I guess really they're a kind of summary. So for each slide here is like a whole bit of chapter really. So I thought the best thing for us to do is have you run through those slides. By the way, you just click on the screen once to go forward,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm sure you figured that out earlier. And basically, give us the sort of presentation bit of it, as it were, at your own pace. And then we've obviously got the full documents and everything around too, so we can refer to that. To, if we're going to interrupt and ask you some questions. But I noticed you actually start the document a bit saying the reasons for the project are very personal, and you well you go into that in detail, but basically you hunted around and you trying to see if any research had been done about OpenSim, and you couldn't really find any, so that prompted you to do this. So starting with your first slide, maybe tell us a bit more in your own words.
Okay. Yes, there's a lot of research on Second Life, but none on OpenSim. But that was not the reason I did this. It was really very personal. I had been in OpenSim for some time, and I wasn't quite comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And there were 2 reasons really. And the first was that I didn't really have the feeling that there was a community feeling. In Second Life, you have all kinds of groups. You can be part of. There are groups, of course, in OpenSim as well, but they seem to be less of directed to do some activities together than
Listen, it's a very different platform in many ways. I mean,
Yeah.
you load up your Firestorm and you enter the worlds, and it looks the same, but then you realise there's a whole load of NPCs and things they don't have over there, but we do here. So they've
Hmm.
got stuff that isn't over here, and sort of the scripts and things behave very differently. Some of the time they do anyway. Um, so, and also, of course, as I said in the start of the show, we're on the hypergrid, so which connects all these virtual worlds or open simulator open worlds together, and the similarities are very much there, but they come across differently. For example, as you say, we have groups here, but because of the communication system, they don't always, you can usually contact people in the world you're in, like you do in Second Life, but sometimes the hypergrid messaging system is not the best. And everything is really scattered. Um, so there are no sort of central high streets like there are, I call them in Second Life. This is like the great wide open spaces. And I think
Yes.
for that reason, it takes quite a while to get comfortable with the fact that you might, even though it takes a few microseconds to TP, you might have to travel a fair bit or hunt around a bit to find out what's going on, which, is something we tried to do at the beginning of the show here, tell
Mm.
people what's going on in Opensim world. There's a lot of places you can check, but there's nothing central and thorough. But so I've interrupted you there in a way, but just I'm presenting the other side here. We're getting defensive about Opensim. But there are similarities, but so they just do tend to be a bit different when it comes down to it, don't they?
Yeah, sure. No, go ahead. Interrupt me as much as you want. But I was talking about what I didn't feel comfortable about, and um, I thought it had to do with the kind of groups, but also with the fact that there is little seems to be little variety in activities. So people go to events, DJs, live singers, and that's about it. I have tried to organize some other things because I thought, well, there are so many activities, sorts of activities in Second Life. I thought, well, maybe it's just a matter of organizing them and they will come, but that's not the case. I heard from Tears that at Safari, when it started out, there were about 2 or 3 people, and now we are with 20 or so, but it takes some time. So I had the feeling that it was very hard to get people interested in anything else than the things they used to do. And one of those things is mainly plodding in their own garden, as I call it. So they're building and scripting and building on their regions and all that. So that was one reason for me to feel not quite happy. And the other reason was that I constantly wondered if people I met were genuine, as in, am I really talking to the person that I think I'm talking to? Because what I heard, there some people have so many alts.
They do.
Yeah, it began to be a bit spooky even. So because I'm a psychologist, not a sociologist. What a hard word.
Yeah.
Well, I remember we used to have quite a lot of alts over in Second Life. I was supposed to do a more manageable there. I had one as an assistant and whatever. But I know what you mean. There are a lot of people who create a new identity for all sorts of different things, and you don't know whether it's you're talking to them. You don't know whether you know them in another disguise or not, kind of thing.
Yeah, but what I heard, and that's very plausible, that if it's true that people have a lot of alts here, I didn't find it. I didn't find it in this project. It's also because it's very easy to have a lot of alts. It costs nothing to make a decent alt and make it
Yeah.
look
And
decent.
as many as you want. Yeah.
Yeah. exactly.
Well, Thursday, who's obviously not here today, but I often joke that I'm busy counting Thursdays. There's an awful lot of them,
Well,
but it does kind of make sense to have an alt on different grids. Not because you don't have a main one that can hypergrid everywhere, but it's like having a backup. If you've got an identity that's linked to a grid, and that goes down for some reason, then you want to have a backup so you've got a duplicate inventory and whatever, so you can do things even when the grid goes down. Exactly how many of these you need, I'm really not quite sure. But you were talking about groups as well, and one of the things we discussed quite a bit is why people in Second Life have not moved to OpenSim. Some educators did, but not that many. Even though Linden Lab upped the price of the educational sims for a while. It seems partly it's community. And I've always said that actually, I mean, I do remember at the beginning of Second Life, a lot of communities from, what were they called? Apple World, was this? And, these online chat room communities actually moved in there because it was a transition from a text-based environment, which
like
was still
GeoCities?
community. Yeah, GeoCities and
Yeah.
I forget the one Tara used to be involved with for Apple, but basically the whole community moved. And to them, there was a bonus. It's like a book club, chatting online, and suddenly they've got a meeting room they can use. So it's a global meeting room as opposed to a local one. And I think OpenSim can be most successful from interviewing people with projects here and everything. It's been a project that they've started in Second Life, and then for the reasons of cost, they've actually brought over here. And you don't get people coming to OpenSim in volumes to like invade, a supermarket or a big clothes emporium or something. But you do find a lot of communities here, like just as in Second Life, you've got the role players, there's masses of Trekkie regions, for example, all doing their own thing. And if you hunt, you find them. But the communities are fine because there'll be maybe a dozen people there, and they all log in together and collaborate in OpenSim together. And it doesn't really matter to them at that stage whether they're in Second Life or OpenSim. The important thing is they have their environment, they know each other, they know what they're doing. Whereas if you're coming in on your own, it's very easy to hear about somewhere like Second Life and then dive in, and it's a bit of a learning curve for the software. But then you, just as we all did, I think, 20 years ago, we were gravitating to clubs that played the music we liked, performers, who were like troubadours, playing the kind of music we liked. And it becomes, I still liken Second Life to like the high street. And, whereas here it's the it's the Wild West, except it's not necessarily in the West, but you get the idea. Okay, when you were preparing a phase of an educational project, you say here, well, this is 2011, you had a nice outing to Second Life to see how help was organised there. Do you want to talk about a little bit about this, rather than the price of land and stuff? You had a way of offering help, yeah.
Oh, about my first my first time in OpenSim, you mean? Yes.
Yeah.
So I've been here longer ago than I thought at first, and
Yeah,
it was an
12 years.
educational project. It was an educational project in OpenSim, Chittendale, about learning a language by ordering in shops and all that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and we wanted to know how you could organize help the best way. So I went to Second Life to see how they did it, and lo and behold, they had those boards with text on it, and I thought, huh, that's that's not what you expect in a virtual world,
Virtual
right?
world, yes.
No, no. So that wasn't such a good idea. But that was my first time in Second Life as well. And I went back after that just to look around a bit. And I've been staying in Second Life for about 10 years or so.
Yeah.
So I've been hopping around with a decade in between.
Well,
Anyway, yeah.
yeah, I always think I'm, you know, I live in open sim if anywhere, you know, but even, you know, that's why I got a little pussycat, you know, going to Second Life with my pussycat and toss around for various things now and again. There are things there that I will not get here, but you know,
Yeah.
I like my wide open spaces, so to speak.
Hmm.
Um,
Are you like your wide open spaces, really? Oh.
yeah, but yeah, yeah, I suppose it's a bit like claustrophobia in Second Life. You know, this expanse of land there is bigger than California in the real world, but you know, it's so there is a lot of it, but somehow you're either nowhere, you know, as there's nothing interesting, or you're with a lot of people and it can begin to feel rather claustrophobic, and especially with crowds, you get lag. So you know, it's not just the crowded thing; it's the performance thing, you know. And I just get very ill tempered with, you know, hey, what this lag thing? You know, this is the 21st century. We shouldn't have this.
Mhm. Yes,
And
but I meant with open spaces here. Not so much in terms of people. That's true, of course, too. There's not many people, but uh, there's it's so empty. There's a lot not built there. It's large grass spaces, and that's it. And here and there you see something, and I think that's because it is so easy to have land here. It
yeah.
costs nothing, so people are a bit spoiled, I think, and
Oh
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons it exists is that to make something that's decentralized, that people have control over themselves, and is a reasonable price to maintain.
Mhm,
um, you know, sort of that's the other big difference there. It's I don't know there's so much criticism as a fact of life. It's the thing that makes the community so different from
mhm,
the you know the big packed
yeah.
you know, city living, if you like. Second Life was the countryside of Opensim. I don't know. I just the quality of life is different, and I think it depends on who you are. I mean, if I'm doing something, I have music playing in my environment all the while. But sometimes if I'm, you know, if I can go into a deserted area that's just really well built and looks picturesque in open sim and get on a horse, well, not a car, please, a horse, you know, and play my own music, you know, not the necessary land feed that they provide, but I'll be playing music and I'll be trotting along on my horse, and it's a bit like you know, you can get these exercise bikes in the real world that have like an iPad type screen, you know, that shows you a virtual environment as you're pedaling along. Basically, as a way of like in the real world, focusing when you're out cycling. You don't notice the strain of cycling because you're looking around and everything going on is of interest. So you know the screens provide that connection, but I don't know, different strokes for different folks, as the saying goes, really. Um,
Ah, I
yeah, that,
I heard something about different strokes today, but okay.
Uh,
it's a
Um.
phrase. Yes.
right.
Oh yeah, I know.
Can I say
That
something?
was the second.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
let's get
Okay.
Tosha and James in here. James's voice is a little low for me, but I
Well,
can't change it now. So
I came from Second Life, of course, too, and I was quite a few years also in Second Life, and I started with OpenSim as soon as Craft opened. I mean, yeah, I knew Liku, the owner of Craft, in Second Life, and I was invited by him to come here. So
Mm.
I've been here ever since. In the beginning, I went once in a while to Second Life still, and now I practically never go. And one of the reasons that I left Second Life was that it it is rather expensive to have to really live good and to be dressed well and to have things or to build yourself even. As soon as you upload things, you have to pay, which is one thing that you don't have to do in OpenSim. And well, I consider myself rather a part of the poorer people, so
Hmm.
for me it was important not to have to pay or not to have to pay so much. Then the other thing is when I go now to Second Life, I find it very, very commercialized. You can of course get everything you want, but you go there and it goes buy, 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 buy. So like everything is getting you to buy something or everybody, and I don't like that very much. And as far as the groups go here, I found some rather nice working group, really good working groups, and of course, like everywhere else, a group always depends on the members. If the members don't, it's hard to organize a good group. But for since I've come to OpenSim, I've practically always been in craft. And well, I've changed a little bit once in a while, but not for a very long time. And craft, I find a pretty good working community. They have groups and they're different things, and it's really, for me, it really means a lot, to be able to be here and to be able to work together with other people. I also like to work alone, I must admit. When I get into building, oof, I don't want to see anybody, and I'm very glad to have a lot of space around me.
Yeah.
But I also like very, very much to work with other people. And as far as goes, the arts, what James, no, what Mel said already, that sometimes it's reasonable and practical to have um, an alt in different grids. I've never done that. I have one alt, and I need it when I have to try out something. And well, my alt also goes um, with a copybot, you know, a copybot viewer, and I need it for my own things because sometimes I don't, I've lost the contact, let's say, to my own textures or something like
Oh,
that.
Yeah.
yep.
And I need this copybot so that I can bring back my textures into my main avatar's uh,
There's
inventory.
always been the copybot thing's always been a bit contentious, but it's quite odd. There used to be in Second Life a company called Resible who made these giant rooms, and they were, they're really
But
an attraction in Second Life for a while. But the guy who ran that, he sent me a copybot software. you know, and it just explained that there are so many limitations and things that can go wrong that you actually need that software sometimes,
hmm,
not to nick things, but just to recover your own things and get things working again. So
but I think also um, against all the prejudice that in OpenSim, for example, there are abundant so many copied things. Well, some are for sure will be there, and I think in Second Life as well.
yeah,
But there are so many incredibly good creators and builders in OpenSim now that that gets every time less. That there are not so many copied things anymore, and it's not really necessary, you know.
I think nowadays there are more regions or grids opening up in OpenSim. that, as I said, have the community there already, and they are beginning to, as you say, there are interesting new things happening. I mean, I wander around and I'll see, oh, I like that tree. Can I get a copy of that to put somewhere, And often you can, sometimes you can't. Um, and for a long time, I would be seeing the similar things all over the place, if not the same. But
Mm.
certainly now, and you can tell by going on safari and things,
But
I'm seeing things I haven't seen before, So
that's the good thing about OpenSim too, that so many people are so generous with their creations. They just put them there for nothing. You don't have to buy everything. They
yeah.
put them there, and they just share. And I think that is quite wonderful thing. But I think the main topic to talk about tonight is really the research of Forest, which I personally find very interesting, and not so much our own opinion about the life here or there. I
Or
think
maybe
it.
Yes,
uh,
yes,
as
but
I
your
say,
comment
move
is
move on with
interesting
your
too. Yeah, 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 yeah.
move on with your screen, maybe. Let's
Yeah.
if we put everything in. No community feeling, little variety in activities. People plodding in the room. God, I love that. Are people genuine? So yeah, what's the next slide?
The next one is about what I did because, well, since I'm a psychologist and of the research kind, so it's the kind of psychologist I am
Yeah.
or was. I thought, well, let's just investigate if other people have the same feeling as me. Where does it come from? Because I didn't really get it. Why I didn't feel that happy. I want to say one more thing about the olds. It turned out it has very practical reasons that the reasons you already mentioned that people need them for different grids and all that. But the feeling I was getting was that people were hiding behind their olds and that they had them for grieving. So
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
and I heard a lot about that from other people. So that's why I thought, oh, I feel very spooky with it, like in the swamp. So are you really, etc. That was the reason.
Yeah,
So
interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
I
So
can
what?
understand that. Did you find that to be true in your research?
No, no. Maybe it is, but maybe asking people about their alts is not the way to find out. Because if they have alts because they want to grieve or to cheat on people, they won't say that, of
Well,
course.
But
really,
that's
I think
that's
there is a lot less grieving on in OpenSim than there is in Second Life. That
I
is the first thing. And the other thing is, I mean, that is my personal view, of course, is that there is the people in OpenSim are a lot more open than they are in Second Life. They hide a lot more. They hide a lot more even behind their first avatar. You know, I have never gotten such close feelings with anybody in Second Life, well, except for one person, as I have here in OpenSim. I'm here now, 14, 15 years in OpenSim, and I really have the feeling that some of the people are my friends, even though I've never known them personally, even though I don't even know their names, I don't know their ages, and anything like that. But I have the feeling they are my friends, and I can rely on them. And if I have a problem, um, well, not exactly a problem, to which veterinary do I go with my dog, of course, but if I have a problem like an emotional problem or a problem with the things that I do in OpenSim, with building, with scripting, with anything like that, I know where to find the people that can help me, and they will help me. They are open and honorable, and that's what makes it feel good to me. It makes it feel like
I
family.
Yeah, I would say that you know griefers would gravitate to somewhere like SL because they can be disruptive and be noticed, and
And noticed by more people than OpenSim.
yeah, yeah. It takes a bit of work to come into OpenSim, and why would any briefer come in here? There's nothing, there's the sort of things that I presume make briefers feel happy, like I just aren't here. People choose to be in OpenSim for other reasons, and so those reasons do not include griefing. In my
Yeah.
opinion. We have
Okay. Okay.
we have
I,
safari conferences and all sorts of things, and we very rarely have come across a griefer at all, in my opinion.
my experiences are quite the opposite of Tosha's.
Mm.
Mhm.
So I still have a lot of friends in Second Life, and with some of them are very good friends. I do have a few friends here, but it may have been a matter of the grid I was in. I was in Osgrid,
One,
and I can assure you there are a lot of grievers there, and there's a lot of bad vibes going on there. So
Hmm.
it's
it's
it's probably a matter of where I was, and most people first go to Osgrid.
yeah,
But it made me
standard.
feel really uncomfortable. Um,
I suppose you sort of land there, and like the main hub of Osgrid. I mean, it's sort of described as a developer's grid, but it's got more long-term people in it that it makes it a bit more like Second Life in that sense if you go to the crowded areas. But I was quite interested in what you said a few minutes ago, and that was that you created what was it, BDSM grid or something like that, and you can find the people to come there. But I'm actually wondering if that is the problem. If you had a community already, you'd probably be able to migrate them over here very easily, but if you're just coming on your own and creating something, I found this in OpenSim. I had a VAR region, 5 by 5. That's like 25 Second Life regions. But, and I had a whale of a time there of building it and getting lost in my own world. But um, I wasn't likely to get any visitors. Occasionally, a few people would come to have a look around, show them what I was doing, then they're off onto the greater, on another safari somewhere, as it were. So, I wouldn't expect to form a community in OpenSim because there is no method of reaching out, shall we say. Easily, that is. I mean, you can go to OpenSim World and say, "Oh, my new region is now online, and it's a wonderful Alice in Wonderland build or something."
mhm.
I'm sure a lot of people will come and look at it, and then they tick it off on the bucket list of having been there, done that.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe if it was a very strong message, community-wise, they would actually come back and want to join the community. But this would take time, and especially in OpenSim, where, as you say, people are scattered a lot more. You know, um,
Yes,
you
but another reason I think, but I didn't. That wasn't a part of my study. Is that I think people are mostly building for themselves, so they are making what they like, and they like to have visitors, but um, they don't think, well, what can I do in my region to m- make people have a good time here? They don't organize stuff in their region.
There I
It's
agree
just,
with you.
huh? What?
There I agree with you.
Hmm.
Totally. I mean, I don't do it myself either. I build and build and build and build, and I think it's wonderful what I build. And when I'm finished with it, I say, what I do now? And I get kind of bored with it, and I see that to it that I get another region so I can build my new idea. That is true. I totally agree with you. But there are also other examples that do a lot of things, a lot of um, like the people we had here last week or some weeks ago of Pangea Grid.
uh,
They really do so many things, and I think there are many grids where people do a lot. have a lot of activities and a lot of shows, and of course also disco, but also other things, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
but it's hard to find, Tosha. Safari was a great help to see that there's more than meets the eye.
oh yes, that is true.
If you just look at the site, Osworld, and you explore from there, well, it made me a bit disappointed. Is that all there is? No.
I see that there's one line in your document here, and I just picking up on now, vaguely concerned. It's you were talking about interviewing and being confident and know what you're talking about, and somebody who spent a considerable time as an avatar in SL before he started interviewing people, and it said you say there was, however, one point of concern. As a researcher, you should not quite become native since you'd run the risk of losing your critical view. Now, I'd like to ask you at this point, do you feel basically, Forrest, that maybe this was affected your view? The fact that to maintain a critical view, which you've done here, then you actually had to stop becoming, you had to put limits on how native you became. That's quite an interesting observation there, really. Um, because suddenly I go and I'll go to an event or something like that, but I don't necessarily, unless I'm passionate about it, I don't really get that involved because I tend to observe. And as you say, I mean, I'm not doing research, but if I was, then you maintain that worldview, to contextualize things rather than sort of dive in and get involved. So, did you feel that was? Did you feel that you were under pressure not to become a native, as it's put here?
No, I was a native, of course.
Yeah,
Virtual world native. No, I'm just saying that normally you would say objectivity is something you would strive for.
yeah,
But this particular investigator said, well, it is good to be a native, though not too much,
yeah,
because otherwise people you are talking to have think you don't know what you're talking about. It's the same as with gamers, um, like parents who have children that play games. They are not communication partners if they don't know what they're talking about, because they only see their child hitting the keys and looking at the screen, but they have no idea what they're doing.
yeah.
So
They don't go in world and meet their children. It's that's something interesting because you talk about age and gender, but where you're looking at something like Facebook, sort of first it was university students, and then it opened up a little bit, and it was younger people, and then sort of every adult and pensioners on Facebook, and they always said, well, the kids today have long since left Facebook. It's become mummy and daddy's place, and it's interesting, sometimes you will find somebody on Facebook and their children or something are also there. But it's actually fairly rare. I mean, people use it and their friends list contains, their contemporaries and people they share particular interests with. Um,
yes,
yeah, it's funny, I'm sure, the kids, I remember when I was young, if everything was filled with adults and convention and stuff like that, I ran away like mad, find something different for me.
mm,
So, that's, I think there are age gaps in, yeah, I mean, you talk about gender, you talk about age too. Um, I don't really think, we knew of somebody once who was quite a young kid. He probably come from the teen grid and moved into SL, and he was quite active for a long while, and then he suddenly sort of disappeared, and it was very apparent to those that knew him that like he was sort of a guy just coming out of his teens, and that the real world was opening up to him. Why would he be hanging around in Second Life when he can go downtown and chase women there or something. It was the things that people at that age do. The virtual world did not provide any alternative or even any real complement to their real world interests. Maybe at a later date, when they slow down a bit, they can get more out of a virtual environment. And of course, kids are growing up. They wouldn't be allowed in something like Second Life or OpenSim, but they're growing up with, a click is second nature to a 6 month old baby these days. They're growing up with the interfacing skills that will ultimately allow that. But at some point, it's like the rite of passage thing. That's always going to happen in the real world. I don't think that generation at any point is really going to be advocating virtual life, so to speak. But James, any questions from you, by the way, in this conversation?
I'm wondering how many more slides
Oh, well, yeah, we got half.
Yeah,
the host
we were
has to go
going
through. Yeah.
Okay, let's just move on. Yeah, it's so easy.
going real slow. But
Yeah.
what I meant about this parenting is not so much about being able to the technical part, but the social part. So when a parent tells a child, "I want you to stop now. You have been behind your screen for an hour. You stop now." And he has no idea that that kid is part of a group assembled together to fight a boss, and that you can't just go away like that.
Yeah.
You have to talk about those things, and that's what I meant with a native. You know about the social things in the game or in the world. Okay,
Yes.
next slide.
No, that is true. I think that is true. That is
Um,
difficult when you're not an insider um, to even ask.
yeah.
Though
Um,
being such an insider also bears certain dangers, that you're too close, that you're too involved, that you're too, that also, you lose the distance.
yes, that was what you mentioned just now, Amel,
Yeah.
about being too much of a native.
Yeah,
Mm.
that in particular in Second Life, that is, I think, a known problem is that people.
But you have certainly also asked, why are people in Second Life or in OpenSim now, not as an opposite, but just why they are in virtual worlds? Have you
Uh,
some answers on that?
yes, I have asked about what they were doing there, um, and there are several taxonomies of activities, and I try to put them in that in there to see what kind of activities they were doing,
And
if they saw their avatar as an extension of their real life, and all that kind of things.
mm,
Yeah, you actually say that the average age of your interviewees in SL was 59, and some considerably older than that. So it does speak to the fact that there is
ha-
not much of a younger generation in there anyway.
no, 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 not. But can you talk to us a little more about that? Because I'm sure not all the ones that are listening to the Inworld review or watching it have read your research. I would think it, very, very interesting if you talk about a little more about the motives for people to go um, into virtual worlds, to dip into another life, you know.
Yes, but I'll come to that.
Okay, sorry.
First about age and gender, and what I
Mm,
say here is that the study might not be representative in terms of age and gender, because the people in my sample, my limited sample, but Second Life research has always very limited samples as well. But they were older in both worlds, so older in Second Life and older in OpenSim. Um, so that might not be representative. I don't know, of course. I can't compare it to other OpenSim studies because there are none.
Not me.
About gender, there are a lot of people thinking that a lot of people, women in Second Life and also in OpenSim are actually men.
And
There are
vice versa.
huh?
And vice versa. I'm reminded of a few rather famous people who pass themselves off as male, who are actually female in Second Life. One, well, I'm not going to mention any names, but one well-known person in particular.
Yes, but the other way around is what you hear most, especially men complaining about it, is that they can't be sure that the women they meet are actually women unless they do some
You
voice
know,
check.
as a researcher, though, do you necessarily know that that matters too much? Is the you know, I've heard, for example, of white women. Well, it could be a man too, but a white woman has deliberately made an avatar, a black avatar of herself, and not with the specific purpose of trying to experience what a black woman's life is in the context of the greater society. And you're viewing Second Life, as a microcosm. And this is done, like you, from the point of view of research. Um, sort of you can learn a lot about people. People in Second Life and OpenSim react to you very much. Your avatars are very expressive things, whether they're photorealistic or just completely wild. They do express an awful lot about you. It's like the you that you want people to see, which is sometimes not possible in real life because you don't like the look of yourself, or you don't like your gender, or you don't like the color of your own skin. So you get a lot of experimentation there, and there's actually a lot being said in research terms of the advantages of that. You
Oh
can
yeah,
form a very close relationship with somebody
mhm.
and not know. You probably know their gender because of the way they speak, but you don't know what color they are. You don't know what their background is. They don't necessarily tell you. You just form a relationship, and maybe down the line you think, oh, I never knew, I never knew that, and whatever. But you know,
I didn't mean to be to have any judgment about people be experimenting, because I do agree that that's a huge possible advantage of being in a virtual world. Although I've hardly found in my sample anyone who said they were experimenting. But what I try to say here is about representativity, that in Second Life there are more females than men.
yeah,
And that was different in my sample, but what I wanted to say is that you never can be really sure if that is in fact if it's in fact a man or a woman, because you
yeah,
don't see them. It's you have the word for it.
Yeah,
Um, and since
that's
there's
interesting.
a bit of a taboo, it's not something people really appreciate, or at least men don't appreciate it. The idea that they are making love to another man when, well, they think they are making love to a woman. Yes,
Yeah,
that's how it works.
a bit
In a related
disconcerting.
question, excuse me, Mal, we have a YouTube viewer who has asked, in terms of your sample, do you know how many people were creators versus non-creators?
Um,
And would that have
I
made a difference, right?
difference in terms of what?
In difference to their responses. So if they are builders in OpenSim or Second Life, does that change the way that they perceive and experience the world?
Good point. Good point. Yeah.
You're talking about correlations.
Yeah, yeah, or
But I
impressions. Yeah,
now yes, I asked them about their activities, and there were a lot of people in OpenSim that were building or scripting. So the majority of people did that. But
and
if
how
that
how
if
about
that if
Second
that
Life? Yeah,
there were builders as well.
Okay.
but more so in OpenSim, which is not surprising, of course, because
Mm-hmm.
it's way easier to build here than
Would
and oh, and I want to say one thing.
yeah.
It seems like I'm very negative about OpenSim. I'm not.
Oh no,
There
no.
are some things that I don't like in OpenSim, but I was flabbergasted by the fact that everything was free and that I could have so much
True.
land for practically nothing. So it does have its advantages, surely,
Yep.
too. So I'm not purely negative. I wouldn't still be here if I was.
Thank
Next
you.
slide.
Thank you. Yep.
Um,
There we are. Yeah.
the idea is that Second Life is more socially oriented than OpenSim, and one way to look at it is look at the activities. Um, there were as many extensionists in Second Life, and extensionists are people for who a virtual world is more or less an extension of their real life, and that made no difference between the Second Life and the OpenSim respondents. They were those were here for fun, but uh, what I did find was that the fun activities in Second Life were a bit more varied. So there were, that goes hand in hand with my impression that there is more of a variety of activities in Second Life than in OpenSim.
When you say extensionists, I think we tend to call those augmentalists, as opposed to the role play and the. I always said I was augmentalist because it's I regard the virtual world as an extension.
Yeah,
So it augments what I do in
yeah,
real life.
yeah.
Uh,
It's
Other
about that.
people would deny that completely. They want to escape and they don't want any connection with their real life.
Yeah. Yes, that would be that category of experimenting, which we talked about earlier. Um, Trying out other worlds. I have done that myself. I had in Second Life for some time, not very long, an avatar that was a dark male, just to experience how it was
The-
to be a man and a black man even.
yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't such fun as I thought it would be.
And you did that. You did that in Open Sim or in Second Life.
In Second Life, in
All
Second
right.
Life.
Okay. Yeah, because there have been plenty of people who tried out on there. I must say.
But it's been some years ago, and I didn't like it very much because I had the feeling that people didn't treat me so nicely
Yeah,
as a black man.
I
I
would
I
also.
had I had a similar experience in Second Life. I also thought it must be nice. Let's see how it feels to be a man, because of course, as a woman, you cannot see that ever anywhere else. And so I made a male avatar, and I found that it was not fun. I did not know how to talk. I mean, chat with people. I barely knew how to move,
Yeah.
and then was the really funny thing. My brother came over and he saw what I was doing, and took um, he took a hold of my avatar, my male avatar, and he was just moving so naturally, talking so naturally to everybody and meeting them. And I just sat there and I said, and I deleted that avatar again. I had no
Oh.
use for it.
Hmm.
That's why my Second Life avatar is a cat. I channel my feline self because the work involved. You can never really be genuine if you're testing that kind of thing. And as you say, women move differently from men, not only in the real world, but the way they handle themselves virtually. And little things like that. I mean,
Yes, and
it's
of
not
course,
real.
as a male avatar, you have a male animation overrider, but even the same, I just felt utterly uncomfortable. and
Yeah.
to talk with people, to go where people are and talk with them. It was, I just, I felt uncomfortably. I felt out of my body, which I was.
Yeah.
Yes, but I was talking about not so much being a man, but about racism. It felt like racism back then.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I
yes.
have a black avatar now in OpenSim, a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no. I don't feel discriminated in
It's
any way.
yeah.
So,
It's in other words, you're fine with gender. It's just race, I suppose. That's where it hits. Maybe it's different from different people, really. I mean,
mm,
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, maybe some avatars make themselves thin, and others make themselves buxom or actually grossly overweight. And
oh no, 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 no! You
you know,
hardly find any obese people avatars in any
yeah,
virtual
you
world.
do. Yeah, in Second Life, I've come across quite a few. It seems to be quite fashionable to be large these days, which is rather odd. And they've got all these strange dances as well. But yeah, I don't know. But for different people, the connection may be different.
Yeah.
In terms of body type, appearance. But I mean, basically, when you make an avatar, you make the person, you make something visually that's the person you want to be,
Yeah, because
which you might not
because
be able to in the real world. Yeah,
because when you look attractive, you have more social interactions than
yeah,
when you don't. And it's about social interactions in a virtual world, of course, too, not just
Yeah,
building.
there
Yeah.
might be a part of it, but I think it is also like, for example, me, since I was a kid, I always wanted red hair, and I
Ah.
always wanted curls, and I haven't either. So what the hell? Now I can, So I made myself curly red hair, and by now everybody recognizes me by that hair also. So I just leave it. I love it.
hmm
yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
Okay.
Let's move on
This
with.
this this slide. What I already said in answer on the question of if there were more creators in the OpenSim sample, yes. More resource users, so people who learn things, who use the skills, who are there to build or script. Helping each other, there were no difference in my samples anyway. But all in all, I had the impression that OpenSim might be a bit more of a serious world than
That's
Second
yeah.
Life.
I just seen that. That was serious. It's a loaded word, really.
Hmm?
Um, serious is kind of a loaded word. It's like, oh well, I'm getting serious now. I'm at work. When I'm not serious, I'm not at work. It's sort of the implication is. I think it may be true. Well, I think there's a lot more serious people in OpenSim than there's a lot of not very serious people in SL. Um, so maybe, yeah, it's an interesting word you've chosen there. Serious, basically. So.
Interestingly, I'm thinking about this, and one thing I haven't heard in OpenSim that I've heard in Second Life is people refer to Second Life and say, "How is this game? How do you play this game?" And I
Right.
feel
hmm
like people in Open Simulator understand it's not a game. It's another existence. It's another world. And I wonder. I see Second Life as being much more consumer oriented, and OpenSim
Yeah,
seems to be much more creative expression oriented,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah,
might
and I
have an
that
impact.
that
Yeah.
yeah,
seems that way. Yes, I think
Yeah.
so too.
yeah.
You got to remember too that way back when Lindenworld, as it first called, was devised as, of course, there was no plot in terms of it being a game, but it was designed to be an open, multiplayer environment, which would be fun. you know, a bit
hmm
like a game. And in fact, they've Linden Labs have always promoted games and methods of games, to be built within Second Life. And if you look at the old footage of the Linden Lab staffers in what used to be called Linden World back in the old days, I mean, it's a total game to them. I mean, they're obviously working on code and doing serious jobs in the lab, but when they're actually trying out the world, they were just having a whale of a time, throwing things at each other, and definitely weren't taking it seriously as the thing it ended up becoming, because they never had any idea what it was going to become.
Yeah.
But as you say, it's become a commercial. The commerce in Second Life is what keeps Linden Lab going. So it obviously is it's the high street. It's the buy sell, generate turnover, even if it's virtual money. It's their thing.
Okay. So shall I get to the
Yeah,
next
yes.
Yeah.
Carry on. I do tend to
the
interrupt
next
too
slide?
much.
Um,
There we are.
Another way to look at the question, my idea that Second Life is more socially oriented, and not just my idea, it's also what you read in literature. Has to do with that community feeling I was talking about, and I asked my respondents about that. They didn't have a community feeling in Second Life or OpenSim as a whole, but way more people in OpenSim than I had expected reported a community feeling on their grid. So if they were on a not if they were on a grid, they had a feeling they were in a community with that grid.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if grids in OpenSim might be compared to groups in Second Life. And one thing about those groups, I mentioned those before. People in Second Life form groups because they want to attain a goal together, and it's too costly to do that by themselves. But that's not true in OpenSim. So the reasons to form groups are different. But
Yeah.
but there is uh, 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 anyway, in the sample I had, there is that community feeling that I didn't have, but they did
I think
with their
this
grid.
comes a bit down to what I mentioned earlier about tribal things. You can bring a tribe of people over to OpenSim from Second Life quite easily, but people do not come on their own. So the communities are there, but they might have just all arrived together, or they formed, but they are. Some grids are actually small enough to really qualify to as a grid, or a small tribe.
Yeah, yeah. When I had finished this report, I thought, well, maybe my lack of community feeling has to do with the fact that I didn't experience more grids, so I did. I made an account for some other grids. I still don't have the community feeling, but it's probably me. So I give up. I give up on that question.
If you come to something like Safari, surely you feel the community feeling on that, so you know it exists.
What?
Don't you feel it? If you come on Safari, for example, surely you sense a community feeling there and know it exists. It's just not everywhere, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. The last another way to look at it, at that question of socially orientation, is
Drama.
drama. Yeah. Um, I thought, well, the, most people in sample in OpenSim, and half the people think there's more drama in Second Life, and that's to do with mostly to do with practical reasons, or those were the reasons they gave most. Because there's simply more people. It's a huge difference in residents, of course.
Uh,
Um, I had the feeling it had to do with the number of alts, because people were hiding behind their alts, but no such relationship was mentioned by any of my respondents. So it was my ghost, my personal swamp.
Yeah,
That I'm yeah.
I think your attribution to problems coming with olds actually. I mean, there are some obviously, but I think maybe you've overestimated that. But um, there's drama. Is to me, it's like you've got a group of people, and um, the more people you got on board with something, the more there's going to be not a bit of antagonism or maybe a bit of assertion, not aggression, but and then that's where the sort of drama comes in. And I think it is also very typical of the fact, as we said, that people come to Open Sim for a reason. People come to Second Life because they've heard of Second Life, and there's a lot of stuff provided on a plate. And maybe just the kind of people there are more prone to drama. But the thing that I find really odd, right, is that when I think of drama, I think of wilder, younger people. And yet your research itself indicates that in Second Life, it's generally a much older crowd. And the fact that there is so much drama is almost think, oh God, can't these adults grow up? When they are grown up, if you see what I mean. So it's interesting comparison there, I think.
Yeah, it's probably has to do with the fact that in Second Life people are more, well, not socially oriented, but having relationships with other people, flirting, having sex, and all that, and that causes a lot of drama, of course, because
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
feels very real, and it's kind of a cooker. People get emotions real quick
Yeah.
and get jealous real quick, and then
Yeah,
and
that
then
breakup of relations and more relations and stuff like that. Sense of drama I've always noticed in, but only a certain number of people. But if you come across those kind of people, it's obviously more swapping partners and all that stuff is more prevalent in Second Life than in real life. Simply because it can, I guess. But um, why?
yeah, and I have the impression that it's not so much an issue in OpenSim, but I might be wrong
But
about
No,
it.
not at
I
all.
think that is just already for the different reasons for people to come the very first time into either Second Life or Open Sim. When they come into Second Life, they come to experience, and maybe also they after a relationship or after some sexual things and some drama. When they come to Open Sim, normally, not all, but normally the people have already had this experience in Second Life, and they come to Open Sim with another reason. They come here to build and to do all this kind of things that they cannot do so well in Second Life. So it is quite normal that there would be less drama here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, probably. Next.
Yeah, represent.
Um, w- One of the reasons I did this project because I had the feeling that people weren't always genuine. Um, that has to do. The question of genuine is in uh, is your avatar uh,
That's
really a representation of yourself?
that surprises me completely. I mean, more open sim residents did not see themselves as an extension of real life, whereas SL or in SL did. I always thought it would have been the other way around, to be honest. That
Yeah,
is that
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
very interesting.
Yes. So for me, that finding was a sign that maybe I was a bit right in feeling that there was less that people were less really themselves here than in Second Life. Um,
Mm.
but of course, it's a limited sample and all that. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I always found you can comment on this because you probably got it in there somewhere, but my name being Mal Burns, right? I missed getting that unless I got it accidentally in Second Life at the beginning. So I had to be a Mal Burns writer, and I did have an old Mal Burns footman. We still got him somewhere. Um, but I never made any pretend. The first thing I wanted to do when I got into Second Life was get my name, not invent a name or find a name. I wanted my name, and I never made any. I never saw any reason to be an alt or have a special name on screen. I just wanted to be me. Oh, it's me, and this is my avatar, but it's still me, kind of thing. And it's funny because I think I probably didn't realize at the time, but I was probably a minority. People moving into Second Life, the first thing they did is say, "Oh, well, I'll have a fancy name for myself." And I remember being very annoyed that I couldn't be just called Mal Burns. I had to be in the writer clan or whatever. So that bears on what you were saying about the augmentation thing. I was just totally thought, well, this is a place I can go and I can do things here that I don't do in RL, but it's just another avenue. It's not something totally different from my
Yes, but
oh,
maybe you were not planning to do things that you wouldn't want your neighbors to know about,
yeah.
for instance. And that happens, and
I probably just didn't care one way or the other. But yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, sort of, that it assumes that people. I was in there because I heard about the art and I wanted to explore. You know, but I'm sure there are other people who heard about it and heard about other things that you can do there or something, and for
yeah.
one reason they wanted the res in a plain brown envelope, please.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, in other terms, you could say their avatars were a representation of themselves because they did say all that their morals and standards were the same, so they wouldn't behave in a way they uh, think they thought they shouldn't.
I
That's
think I
interesting. So if they would choose a name and an avatar that didn't reflect their real life, but then they would still behave to the same standard they would in real life.
I
That's
think in the end you cannot avoid that because there's always a, your avatar always is only what the person behind the monitor can be. You
yeah.
know, you can maybe live out some dreams and be it sexual, be it I don't know in which way, um, in virtual world that you cannot live in the real world, but the dreams as the person. Or you can, discuss in certain way or be biggery or be bitchy, but you know, only if the person in real life is that way also,
God, you mentioned
which means you cannot change your personality as an avatar
Oh,
completely.
but you can
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
because
if you really
that's
want
that's
to. Yeah.
that's about enhancement. Is your avatar bigger than you? And that can be in physical terms. Next slide's about that, but also in terms of personality. And um, in that Second Life research, it was that was something that was found that people who were shy in real life were way less so. Um, in their virtual world because they could hide behind their avatar. It
Oh
was,
yes, that
yeah,
I can
I think,
imagine. That I can imagine, but you cannot, completely change your personality. Being shy is a part of a condition, but
yeah.
I
It's
mean,
very good. It's very, it's a very good environment for confidence building, for example, because, we don't have total immersion. We have a limited immersion, and to a certain extent, you can, dictate which bits of you appear and which bits of you don't. And I remember bringing, sort of a real world person for the first time into Second Life, and they were very happy, and they thought it was fine until they were in a room with other people, and they hadn't clicked that the other avatars were real people.
Mhm.
And they just were out of there like a shot. They couldn't handle it at all.
Mhm.
Where other people, of course, just fall into that, as you say. Just because you're shy doesn't mean you log out when you realise there's other people there. You just adapt. Whereas in real life, the fact you're shy might be a cause for you to run away, if you see what I mean.
Yeah,
So, yeah, these there are so many differences in a way that it's a whole issue in itself. To what extent the um, virtual embodiment, shall we say, especially in the future, will actually be an important part of people's real life identity, as it were,
yeah,
with augmented technologies and things rather than virtual. So curious. Where are
yeah.
we on the slide?
This,
Yeah.
this, yeah, this next slide. But what I just said about self-enhancement, that's people tend to be a bigger version of themselves, but not big in literal sense, but a better version of themselves. But
Yes.
I didn't ask my respondents if their avatar was slimmer or more attractive than they were themselves in.
It's very telling, isn't it, that you go into
Well,
somewhere like Second Life,
well,
particularly, and you see all these very, very attractive young women. Yet
Mhm.
I,
we also know that the user demographic is actually quite old. So, in
yeah.
fact, the most popular thing to
Yeah,
do
that is
must
true.
be
But I can tell you one thing that is for certain, and it makes me laugh very often, is that craft where I made home is an Italian. Well, it's not an Italian grid; it's an international grid. But yet the majority of the people, at least the active majority, are Italians, and Italian men are known within European standards to be rather small men.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
the tallest avatars, men and also women, that I've ever seen
what
are
comes.
in craft. Every time when I stand next to the Italian avatars, I look like a mouse.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I can see that. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
uh, I did notice, however, that there are you don't see many default avatars in Second Life. There are some, but there are way more in OpenSim, I think.
Hmm.
So maybe it's that's the thing too. About personality, I just mentioned that about shyness. It was rarely mentioned by my respondents that their personality was different for their avatar than for themselves in real life. And another way to enhance yourself is by status. And like in Second Life, can have more status by having more possessions. You can show that you're rich. You have a great, big, large sailboat or whatever, which is expensive, of course. Um, and that's not the case in OpenSim since everything is free. So everybody
What
can have a sailboat. A
Mm.
big,
could could traffic
And
be an
everybody can have a perfect avatar if he wants or she wants so.
sure.
And
Yeah.
that in Second Life is a lot more difficult. It became especially difficult when Mesh was starting, because you either bought a Mesh avatar or you had the old avatar in,
yeah.
Yeah.
and therefore everybody could see right away, has money or not.
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
It was a start, it's micro management of money, really. I mean, nothing in Second Life other than land, of course, is phenomenally expensive if you convert to dollars and things. But it is that escapist thing. I mean, the people who live in a small, inner city apartment or room, even, you know, what's the thing they want in their cell? They want space. They want a big mansion. They want yachts. They want a beach environment and stuff. So they're actually searching for the things they'll never attain in the real world, and that's fair enough. You know, if
Yeah.
that's the reason they're in there.
Anyway, what I thought, because possessions are not an issue in OpenSim because everything is free, that maybe you have status in OpenSim, so you can make yourself larger by traffic. So you made a region, you
And
made
contrary to what people think, not everything in OpenSim is free. You know, you just look at some of the grids that run Globits.
Yeah, okay, but you can
You
get
have to buy
most things free. You can
Yeah,
get
yeah,
most
yeah,
everything for free,
yeah. You can, yeah, everything you need you can find for free. But
and much
vanity is such,
more than that even.
yeah, yeah. If you're a freebie hunter, then that could be your sole purpose in being in OpenSim. Yeah, there's stuff here if you know where to find it. That's very true.
yeah.
I'm just realizing that we're really pushing time now. That James hasn't let off the alarms yet, but
Last thing about the traffic, because
yeah,
I think I really was flabbergasted about that. That
yeah.
it's such an issue. When you look at the chat in on Osworld, it's all about traffic. There's more traffic in my grid than in yours, and there's really competitions, wars about it. So I think that's the
I
status
see.
thing
Oh,
in
that is
OpenSim.
interesting.
So I've made something so beautiful that way more people come look at my
Well,
sim grid
you
than
know,
yours.
yeah, actually, I'm beginning to see a correlation there that's actually very interesting because I think consumers gravitate towards Second Life for sure, whereas producers will gravitate more, in theory at least, into OpenSim. But also, you imagine you've got a lot of people who are in their own little regions. They work, you know, hour, day in, day out on their own little projects, and maybe once a week they come to a club and talk. And of course, you can understand why they're also my grid's better than your grid. You can almost hear that that conversation.
No, but
Uh,
that really is a very interesting point. I would have
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
thought about that really.
uh, no, quite, yeah, fascinating.
Okay, I
Is that
think
the last?
the last
Okay, yeah,
one.
last
Oh
one.
yes,
Yeah.
it's about genuine as well. A few things that slightly more Second Life residents that others are not genuine because I specifically asked them.
Yeah.
On the other hand, more Second Life residents and really more thought others are genuine. So my feeling that there is a bit less genuinity in oh, what a difficult word again, socially. In OpenSim was a bit corroborated by these findings. And OpenSim residents are a bit less often satisfied with their virtual life, and that has to do with mostly with grieving and trolls and all that.
I do.
So my feelings of not being quite happy and not quite at
How
ease were a
okay?
bit.
Going back to the beginning, because these thoughts are here. You had what was it, 12 SL and 11 OpenSim people in the research, didn't you? Um, what criteria did you use in finding the interviewees? I mean, did they all come from um, one set of contacts, or did you actively put out feelers all over the place? I mean, is there any perceived bias that you can think of in the interviewees you chose? Like,
Yeah,
who-
certainly. Because most of the respondents in both group were people from my friends group.
yeah,
Some people I met and I asked, "Will you participate?" But it wasn't random at all. No, no. So that's a bias.
uh,
I have
Sure.
another question from the audience, Forrest, and an interesting question. And the person is asking how many of the people In Second Life, we're using a human avatar. Was anybody using a non-human avatar?
None.
None. Okay. Yep. That's something we see a lot too. Yeah.
You didn't try talking to the cat, did you? It's that's actually interesting. I got very confused when I was early in Second Life. I think it was like no, not Edunation, Edu First. One of the sentences, education.
Educause.
I think, yeah. And the two guys who run that in real life, they were gay. Yeah, they didn't make a thing of it, and I didn't find that out till a lot later. But they were in world. They were furries, and I remember getting into a conversation with one of them who was trying to tell me in very sort of abstract terms the symbolism of the furry. And I thought, and he said, "How if you understood that? You mean furries are gay?" But it wasn't that simple, of course, because there's plenty of furries that aren't. But I remember I got wholly confused by that. I thought, is there a gay community in Second Life who are all furries? And is that why they are furries? And, because I was new at the time, of
Uh,
course, I was on a wild goose chase there. But I mean, I remember it being so funny because I thought, well, I've got to figure this out. There's something important here. I've got to be careful who I'm talking to. But yeah, I mean, you live and learn basically. I think time counts for everything. I mean, you might, I suppose, at first be a bit wary of an avatar when it's another person in there, and I've always been a voice person, and I never liked text. So when voice came to Second Life, I was away. But even before that, I used to use you could actually buy a Skype phone in Second Life, which you wore on your shoulder,
mm,
and you could ring anybody in Skype from your avatar. And so I remember we did a whole bit of sessions on where to go to get your Skype phone, and it connected to you could have it connected to your real Skype, or just leave it as an avatar one. And but I've always used voice. You can probably tell I rabbit away like mad, like on this show. But I don't like, I'm the person that wants to wear a T-shirt saying I don't do text. In the same way, there's a lot of people there that say I don't do voice. And of course, that is another part of this, isn't it? Because the moment somebody uses voice, they probably have given away their gender. Isn't that fair?
yes, I suppose so. I'm one of those people who preferably doesn't use voice except when I do a performance, because it diminishes the illusion for me. And I can imagine that you, Mel, prefer to use voice because you want to be yourself totally in.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
just not anybody other than myself in any circus. I mean, as I say, I've got a lovely little mesh pussycat avatar in Second Life, and I do channel into that in the way that I kind of get the thing. It must be lovely to be a cat. But it's not. I was in there a few weeks ago, and I had to go on the TV program in Second Life, and they made me give up the cat and go back to one of my own human avatars. Because that's the person we remember from 15 years ago.
Uh,
Because it doesn't seem right to have a cat talking. You know,
Mm.
Forrest, let me ask you one thing about your research.
yeah.
The OS residents that you ask, that you question, are there are there mostly of OS grid or all of them?
No, they were not. No, maybe half, but there were surely also people from other grids. I have people I know from other grids as well, so I asked them to. No, it's not just Lots Grid. No.
Okay, but because think your research is really interesting, but it surprises me in very many points also, and it is really diametrical. Well, to my own experience in Second Life, as well as in OpenSim.
Yes, I think that the reason that I started this project was because I was used to the environment of Osgrid, so
Mm,
that might explain the difference in experience you have and I have. Only the people I interviewed were not all from Osgrid, and that's why I found things that surprised me as well, that were contrary to my expectations.
mm,
I
I think.
scanned it quite a long way further down here. Sort of, it's a very long document still. We're barely through it, but yes, there's a point here that says admins don't intervene when people are insulted, for instance, because they belong to lesbian, gay, or LGBT. Um, that's interesting because something we haven't covered in the talk is what the role of admins are in OpenSim. I mean, obviously, admins are basically admins of an individual grid. There's no admin for the hypergrid, if you see what I mean.
Mhm.
But do admins? I don't know whether this is anywhere in the questions, but do you find that admin people on grids that are connected to the hypergrid um, have different standards than say the admins of regions in Second Life, who obviously can then go to Linden Lab if they get really upset and get the lab to intervene. That's a very different situation, isn't it? Because you have moderators and things almost everywhere these days. So admins on the grids, however big or small, are probably essential one way or another, aren't they?
I remember a situation in Second Life where um, I was really some lindens came to me. I mean, not Lyndon himself, but somebody in charge of him, because I did something that they considered anti-religious,
I,
and I was forced to remove it.
Oh my.
Uh,
So this kind of thing you surely will not find in OpenSim. But I do have the experience in craft. I can always mostly talk about craft that Lico did interfere a few times when people were badly insulted or were other things that happened. So I cannot I cannot really share your experience there either.
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Linden Labs have got more strict about things over time as they got bigger and bigger. You know, you have Philip having to go to give testimony in Congress and things. Um, and so and they had to get rid of gambling, and they gave up the teen grid, but they had to put more controls into the adult grid and um, stuff like that. And in fact, Second Life is so big; it's very hard for Linden Lab to actually keep an eye on what's going on. They've got a big map on the wall, and they can do it that way. But there's too many regions for them to have spies everywhere, so they rely
yes,
on what
yes, but when you have a complaint in Second Life,
you.
you can put a ticket in,
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
and
And
you can't do that here. Only with the admin of the grid
yeah, you can
you
put a
belong
ticket
to.
in if you're on Kitely or if you're on.
Yeah, but your
You can,
admin is much more reachable for you. He's
yeah,
much closer than, for example, the Lindens in Second Life. There you have to put in a ticket because not the Second Life nor the people could, get a
there
hold
aren't
of each
enough.
other or touch with each other.
There aren't enough staff. There aren't any actual,
Well,
avatar.
when in craft we have a problem, we call on Liku, and
Yeah,
everybody knows Liku, and Liku is always helpful and always trying to do things. So you have a much more direct line to the admins.
So, Forrest, I have a question.
Hmm.
What's next? Have you published this paper, and then are you going to do a follow up?
No, since it's scientifically of very limited value
Uh-huh.
because of the limitations I mentioned, I wouldn't publish it
Ah,
anywhere
okay.
except on the blog that you are seeing now.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not doing a follow-up. I was doing a follow-up in practicality because I thought, okay, I don't have this community feeling. I seem to be not right about it, so let's join some other grids.
It's
Um,
it's very
It was
interesting. Yeah.
when we were new thing that I was, especially when I knew Thursday wouldn't be. I was sort of wondering if to get anybody else in here, and the first person I thought of was somebody like Tom Bostoff, who you probably heard of. Um, In fact, he did an educational talk in Second Life just last week. But
Right.
he's what anthropology is really his thing. There's gay too, but he did an awful lot of academic research, on behaviours and stuff, using Second Life as a ground for for basically the skills he has and the things he does already in the real world. And these things are out there. Over the years, I've got very bad at keeping my links in order. But when I come across these papers or download PDFs of research and stuff, file them away in the PDF folder. There is actually a lot out there, especially in Second Life, because that was the go-to place for academics for a long while. They tend to
mhm.
be more involved in, actual helmet lands now than anywhere else. But times have actually changed, and the way the technology will adapt in future, we don't know whether the virtual worlds as we see them now will continue. I mean, we're talking about the creators. You know, now some of them may come to regions and take places in open sim, for example, but equally the thing now with a lot of these new 3D worlds, especially if you can be also them in, uh, a game engine where you can put a helmet on and go in proper 3D, is they promote them as single destinations. They're not what we call virtual worlds. They're more like even Kitely, which considers each region a world, it can bring it up quite quick. But a lot of these places on the way, you follow a web link, for example, and you go to an art exhibition, and it's there, but the boundaries are at the end of the exhibition. You can't just walk out downtown and find a wonderful, interesting place. The place ends with the place where the exhibition is. And in a world of people on phones who want to get to places very quick and actually just scan around a bit, um, the individual destinations without community seem to be the things that are being advocated. I would think their lack of community is the thing that will limit them, but that's my thought.
Uh, but to say something more about what's next, nothing like this. But my, like I said, the reason for me to do this for me was very personal because I wasn't happy here,
Yeah.
not quite happy. I wanted to know why. Uh, I got some answers, and I thought it would be nice to share them this
Oh,
way. So
yes. Thank you.
by
Yeah.
putting them on this blog, but that's about it.
And I would ask Mel, when you post about this Inworld review, that you also could post the link to the
To the
blog
article,
of
yeah,
Forest, because it's really interesting, and I would
Yeah.
really like more people to be able to read it.
yeah, for
I
sure,
agree,
yeah.
Tosha. That's great.
Thank you, Tosha.
Well, I don't know where time goes. I thought we'd have a problem filling all this today because we didn't even show any movies anyway. But I thought I couldn't actually scroll through the document and have film at the same time. I hadn't realised that. Um, Time has flown.
Mhm.
This is actually one of the longest shows we've had for a long while, and it's been all talk. I often tell people to relax before we start this show and imagine it's a dinner table conversation. And I actually think today it really has felt like the dinner party conversation. That's just what it's been. looking at all these issues and from different points of view. But time is of the essence now.
Hmm.
We need to wrap the show, but I actually think we could continue this at another point. I mean, in terms of the things we cover through, we've only gone to about half of what's in this document anyway, because there's you do cover such a lot. But I do think the slides you've given us and commented on have given us a very good general overview of what's contained in the greater document. So it's wonderful. So close the show, he says. Yes, all things must pass, as they say. I'd like to thank our special guest this week, Forest Azure. Thank you for being here, and it's just been wonderful conversation. So thank you very much, Forest.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And she didn't get much of a word in edgeways either. My co-host this week, Tosha Tyran. Thank you, Tosha.
You're welcome. It was a delight and a special delight to talk with Forrest, because normally I only have the pleasure to meet her in the safaris, and now
Yeah.
here. Thank you, Forrest.
Yeah, and I can always tease you a bit, and you tease me in the safari, and now we are being more serious.
Yes, yes,
Now
yes.
you can do it in voice.
Right.
Yeah.
That's one thing we never have on safari, which for better or worse, really. We need the multi-languages, so we give up on voice. And also thank you, of course, to Tech Wizard, Constant Sitter, and Fiddler of Knobs, James Atlloud.
Oh, thank you, Mal. If I don't use my superpowers, they go to waste. So this
I
is
know.
this is great fun. Thank you so much.
Same with all of us. We stagnate, don't we?
Yeah.
Well, we will be returning same time, same place next week. When I say same time, next place, I do believe that apart from James, we're all in Europe, but we will be back on the summertime,
In summertime,
both
yeah.
European
Yeah.
summertime and Easter, for that matter, all happens next weekend. So by this time next week, we will be. It won't be quite the same time, same place, but it only be an hour out. If you see it, back to normal is what I mean. Anyway, hopefully we'll see you soon. Then, and for the moment, I wish you all a very good morning, a very good afternoon, a very good evening, and indeed a good tomorrow, depending on wherever and whenever you are. And we're out of here.